Dude, what? I will do some video too.
Okay. Well, so
Welcome back. Go
yeah,
ahead.
so dude, so I thought about doing this and I was like, well, like I want to close, like I feel like we did 2 or 3 episodes here, obviously important. But I kind of wanted to like kind of close this out. But then I was like, well, shit, like, do we even know if you can close it out? I mean, like, so with shit happening the other day, I was like, I don't even know if you can close out this whole Iran Israel thing. But I kind of wanted to kind of do something to kind of wrap it up and almost be like, okay, what did we learn? What's different? Like, what happened that, like, maybe in the moment, like, we didn't really know, which way it was, but now we kind of know, like, how, like, what does all this look like unraveling? And so I kind of want to start basically from when Israel struck Iran. Was it like 13, 14 days ago or something like that? And I kind of want to start with you, Austin, and be like, okay, the first question I want to know: did Trump, and I've heard it's still contentious, did Trump know
Can
that
I
Israel
take the
was
reign
gonna?
on this first? Can I get the first go? I
Yeah,
feel
go
like
ahead,
I
Austin.
go.
Or Josh, whichever.
Yeah.
Boy, ask the question though, Andrew. So I want to go first on this
Yeah,
one.
yeah. So, did Trump actually know,
Okay.
actually greenlight Israel's strike on Iran?
Great first off question. I think I'll be honest. I think that initially Trump did. I think Trump was, side with Israel. It's like, Iran did this, so boom. But I think it was one of those moments where it's like, hey, do this, and then like we're gonna come in and do all, and like we're gonna take care of Iran, and this is gonna be over. And then Israel is like, in the back seat driving it, like, oh, we're gonna keep going. And now Trump's, I think, mad at both now because it's like, again, he said, "What they don't know what the fuck they're doing." It's like, we're dealing with, it's like he thought he handled it. So I do think Trump did greenlight the first one. I think everything after that, I think he's been disappointed in Israel though.
Okay. What do you think, Austin? You're muted.
Come on, you red hair fury dude, let's rock. Come on, Austin. Don't let the gingers down.
Okay, so while he's getting his shit situated,
Okay, yeah, go ahead.
here's what I'll say. I think Trump knew from the very beginning. I think there's evidence to show
We definitely had a
he knew.
hand in it.
Well, and
We
that's the thing is,
definitely.
like I think he definitely knew, and I think it was like, hey, like I think he was kind of like, I think he kind of had the plan of like, okay, like we've got to attack their nuclear sites. We've got to hit them. Um, I can't be obviously the first one to do it. Israel go in and you know I know they're going to try to hit stuff, and we'll come in behind it, and we don't have any intention of negotiating this next round, and then you know we hope that we can get in a better situation after. But Austin, I see you came off mute. What do you think?
To the question of whether he knew or not, I don't think he did, or if he did, it was short notice. And the only reason I believe that is because we had to begin move, like we track that as it happened. Like they began like sending forces in the Middle East. I feel like if he knew beforehand, that would have started sooner. So I mean, like especially moving the tankers, then obviously all that took several days, and like we kind of watched that happen in real time. So I kind of feel like, in a sense, he was caught off guard, or maybe not him personally, but I do feel like just off the force posture, we didn't expect him to do that. It's kind of my take. Now, it
So
could come out later. I mean,
you're more in the we don't think he
Wait,
did.
so now, Austin, are you also saying that like we told Israel no on the front end too?
I don't think we did that. I don't. I
'Cause that's one
don't.
thing I've heard
I feel like this was kind of
is like, did we tell
do
them
what
no? That I've heard in the ether? I'm like, did we tell Israel not to? I mean, I don't think we did either. But I was like asking you there.
Uh, I haven't seen anything, but just like from the fact that like we just didn't have enough forces in place as soon as it started, and we had to like move them, because that was one thing we all were kind of watching. Like I know in the group chat, like that was something we kept discussing. I kept like posting about because it was like, yeah, we all kind of, I think we all remember that night that all of a sudden we started seeing like 20, 30 tankers get transferred to the Middle East, and then it just kept happening. And that was kind of a big tip off that something was coming. So I mean, I do think just from the
But
strategic posture,
was that the tip off of us getting involved, or was that the tip off of Israel getting involved?
I feel like if they knew Israel was going to get involved, they would have. They could have been doing a lot more. Like so today, there was some more analysis came out. Like that like as far as like the one thing I've been tracking, I kept saying like, hey, we got to keep it like the interceptors, like their air defense and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And there was stuff that came out today. It looks like they pretty much exhausted an entire like THAAD battery trying to like intercept all these attacks. So I feel like if we knew for sure, we would have like moved more ammunition into place, especially for those, and then too just like started moving in aircraft and stuff. So I kind of feel like the Israelis just did this, and then at that point it was kind of like, well, I guess
I guess
guess
we're
we'll
in it.
back, yeah, kind of that kind of deal. But that's just, I mean, now something may come out in like another week or two and like completely invalidate that. But
Yeah, exactly. And the thing is like, to really do this right, and that's why one of the things I kind of wanted to get out of this is almost to like put it on record, like, hey, this just ended. As far as we know, there's not really any major like shooting and anything like that happening. There's probably still is. That's how this stuff always works. But right now, here's like kind of what we know. And then we could maybe even do one later on and be like, hey, like, what do we actually know now? Like now that and usually it'll take like a year or two, but it's like, okay, this information has kind of come out. Okay, what do we actually see? Did was there clear communication signals? All this other kind of stuff. So then the next question I kind of want to know is how effective in terms of hitting targets was the Israeli strikes? That's one thing that I kind of want to see. So, Josh, how would you rate the effectiveness of what Israel kind of had done to Iran?
As in like their relationship with Iran, or just like in general?
No, just like so, like you have you have the decapitation event attacks. You have
Yeah.
the they hit some of their sites and everything like that. Overall, how would you say the effectiveness of the attacks were? Like, do you think they achieved the objectives or not?
No.
Okay.
Personally, I don't think so. I'll be honest. I think again, I'm still on the side of I think we should have stayed out of it. Um, I don't. I'm kind of tired of fighting everybody else's fight, but I will say I think it's like obviously noticeable that this happened. I think the effectiveness is kind of funny in my opinion. I think it's funny to watch Afghanistan and Pakistan both be like, no, no, we're gonna stay out of this one, and then Turkey's guy trying to come in and like rally the Middle East, and it's like, yeah, good luck with that, dude. Like please get involved if you can. It's just not gonna happen. But I think the effectiveness was just like the Middle East is just what it is. I think they're just a little bit more on the perturbed side of it. And my issues, I do think Israel still thinks they have this chokehold over America with, hey, you're going to clean this up for us, don't you? So that's kind of where I'm at with it.
What are you thinking, Austin?
in terms of like the effectiveness of their strikes,
Yeah, like do you think Israel achieved its objectives against Iran?
no. So ostensibly, their goal in this whole thing was to cripple their nuclear program by
Well, was
all
it though?
accounts they've.
Was it though, or was it
Yeah,
That
actually
was
Austin's
that
plan?
was
Austin's
that
right. Austin's right. Austin's right. Cook.
officially that is their goal. Their unofficial goal, and they kind of I'm pretty sure I sent in the group chat like the last few days they were kind of switching to like, well, we're more interested in kind of like a regime change kind of effort.
Yep.
So I mean, yeah, I mean tactically, yes, they inflicted pretty serious damage. The list I've seen so far is that it's verified about 30 Iranian generals were killed. So I mean, yeah, you tactically did a lot of damage, but strategically you didn't topple the regime. There's now like I think it was the Economist. Yeah, the Economist today ran a big article about how this is like empowered like the what do you call them, the Revolutionary Guards. Like
Yep.
they're now like the predominant power. Like there's now like a nationalist surge in like Iran, and like it's from what the Economist and like multiple other papers reporting, this is basically just like obliterated the pro-Western moderates in Iran, because now it's like, hey, we were negotiating with them and they attacked us, so it's like we really can't trust them. And yeah, like
Well, I
it's
think
kind
there was like a law that they passed, like the legislative body that basically allowed them. It's like it does something, but then it was like it was maybe like an anti-spying or something like that. But then it basically people are like, yeah, they're basically going to use this to crack down on dissidents, pro-Western
yeah,
people, etc. Like they're like basically you're going to start seeing a consolidation of power in Iran.
yeah. So it's like, the Economist is saying it's basically consolidating on like the hardliners and the IRGC. And so like that law, so like today they announced they've arrested like 700 people, I think, in total over the course of this. And like, yeah, I mean, like from all accounts, like one of the funniest things is like in the last few days when Israel like explicitly started trying to do like regime change. One of the things they did was there's this really famous prison I think in Tehran called like the Evian prison or something like that. It's where they keep a lot of the dissidents. So they attacked it with the intention of causing a prison break and like allowing them all to escape and stuff. So what ended up happening was like all the prisoners and their families came out and like condemned the strike and like issued a statement of support in Iran. So it's kind of like
We support those
everything they
who
tried and
trust us.
yeah. So it's like if you take it by like causing regime change, but by all accounts, it's caused like a consolidation and like increased support for the regime. If you take it from like a nuclear perspective, I mean, I saw a really funny tweet today, and it's like I think we all just need to come together and like say that like Trump is right. We definitely like destroyed the nuclear sites just to prevent that. Like we definitely don't need to get involved any further. Trump is definitely right. Like we definitely did that. And it was obviously tongue in cheek, but it's like
Yeah.
they still haven't like by all accounts. So I think I sent in the group chat yesterday. So like CNN was the first report. The New York Times came out, NBC, ABC, Associated Press, and I think Reuters as well all came out and like, yeah, based on this DIA assessment, like, no, it's pretty intact, and that kind of matched too, because like I know the day after me and you were talking about Andrew, because like the first satellite photos came in, and I was kind of like, this don't really look like they achieved anything. I mean, they obviously cratered it, but that's So I mean, like if the nuclear program's intact, the regime is kind of strengthened, and they still retain like their ballistic missile capability. I mean, it's obviously degraded, but it's not like it's destroyed. I mean, I don't think they've achieved their strategic goals, and then you got to balance that between like, okay, what did Israel lose in like turn, and then two today. The really I don't know if you guys saw this because I meant to send it. So the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, I think it's called, or the Cooperative Organization. I can't remember what the C stands for. Is like this big kind of like thing with like Russia, China, Iran, and then like a bunch of other like smaller states. So the Iranians showed up to that today, so they're having a big meeting, and then the rumor is that the Iranians were looking to start purchasing like Chinese gear. So like the same stuff the Pakistanis used to fight the Indians like last month is kind of the same stuff Iran's looking at now. So they're looking at like China's SAMs are called I think like HQ-16s, and then they're looking at JC-10s and stuff. So like the regime is basically consolidated. It's looking to like really deepen its ties with China, and that could lead it to acquiring new capabilities. And then, like I said, like the nuclear program, by most reasonable standards, is still there. At most, they've been set back a couple of months. So if they really want to go for a nuke, they could probably still achieve it.
Yep.
So I know this is kind of like a rambling answer, but just all in all, like if you take it like their stated and unstated goals, they didn't really achieve anything. So I mean, it's kind of like I think at best you could call it a stalemate.
Yeah. So when I was thinking about the effectiveness and one of the questions I didn't ask was about the U.S. and so that'll be the next question that I'll start us off with. But really, with the Israeli strikes, I was thinking about it and I was like, they know well enough that Iran is so decentralized in its leadership structure to where, okay, like you said, like great, you hit this chief of staff over here, you did this, you did this. Really, the only one who probably would have done anything from like a regime standpoint would have been the Ayatollah, and even then, it's like I don't really know if that's something you want to go and do. So it's like I think like as far as the regime change part, like you didn't really do anything. And then in terms of actually, taking out their nuclear sites, I think the thing for me is it was like they never were going to be able to do that. Like they knew that, like, okay, they were going to hit all the sizes in Bordeaux, and they're like, they never were going to be able to get that, and that's where all the value was. And I think now they don't even know where the uranium is that was there, because they're like, oh yeah, they think that we probably took it. Now I think that they kind of have ideas, but it's like, okay, so now you just kind of dug this further underground, and you basically probably don't even have intelligent sources into where those places are. I don't really know if you got anything from this. And
One of the
that's why I
craziest
was like,
things that
I don't
came
really
out.
know if you're getting anything like out of this whole strike. And I'm like, it's like, and I guess they were kind of like, okay, we're gonna roll the dice. We're not gonna lose anything on this, and we're gonna try to get something out of it. And we get something that's setting back their nuclear capability. But it kind of goes into the once again the thing that I hate the most about the Trump administration is it's like, what are those second, third order effects? If you don't do this, is Iran going to say, okay, we're going to now work more with North Korea to get nuclear capability? Are we going to now work more towards Russia and get support for drones and things like that? Pakistan and China for material. It's like, now they're just going to ally themselves with that direction more than they ever would. So I don't get that.
One of the funniest things to come out of that reporting yesterday, which I really don't think people talked about enough. So in the U.S., I think it was the New York Times was the first one to break it. Apparently, according to that DIA assessment, and then I think Israeli, I think it was Channel 12, which is like one of their. It was either Channel 12 or Channel 14, which is like one of their major medias over there, and it was like, yeah, so apparently like they may have moved that uranium to like secret nuclear facilities we don't know where they are, and it was kind of
Exactly.
like,
It's like,
you
oh yeah,
guys,
great. Now we don't even know where it is. It's like,
it's like,
uh,
it's like,
we knew
guys,
where it
you
was
mean to tell me?
and we knew, where to strike. And it's one of the things that you even said. It's like, yeah, but like, if you don't even know what's at these other places, you don't even actually know what their capability is. For all you know is,
It's
bombing
it's
them.
it's just
It's
wild.
like they could have a nuclear weapon, and they're just like, hey, we're just not going to use it yet because we don't have the missile technology, or whatever it is. It's like they could do that.
And
So
one of
go ahead, Austin, and then I want to shift this to the U.S. Go ahead.
like the last thing I'll add on that, because I forgot to send in the group chat. I meant to tell you guys earlier. So like the Iranian parliament today voted. I can't remember what the exact like terminology on it was, but it was basically like they suspended all cooperation with the IAEA. So now it's
Yep.
like
You can't even
they
have
could
them
really. I
involved.
mean, so it's like with most of those reports are like, yeah, at most this is set them back like a month or two, if that. And it's like, so what you mean? So in that law, like the way you withdraw from that the nuclear proliferation treaty is I think you require like a 90-day notice or something like that.
Yep.
So it's like all these facilities we don't know. Apparently, these facilities we did hit are mostly intact, and they're now passing laws that legally allow them to sprint towards it. So it's like, realistically speaking, 3 months from now, we could be like talking about like a nuclear Iran. Like we may have created a self-fulfilling prophecy at this point.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like, yeah, it's just kind of dovetailing with what we keep saying is like second order effects are just not. They're just not considering second order effects, I guess.
Well, and so that's why I want to shift to the U.S. because one of the things that I think I posted the tweet that I put out is like the United States basically, when you look at like what we were kind of the superpower in, we were the superpower diplomatically, militarily, and economically. It's like since the Trump administration has started, we burned two of those on a regional power Iran. Like now, I don't know. Like you can really make an argument about the diplomatic credibility of the United States anymore. And I can totally see some country we're trying to get into our direction being like, well, yeah, but you did this whole thing with Iran. Can we really trust you? And then you've got the whole military one where it's like, okay, we could build a uh, nuclear base and nuclear technology, and they can't hit it. It's like other than dropping a nuke on them, they cannot hit this, below certain level in the ground, and it's like okay, so basically that tells what the U.S. military can and can't do. So it's like you just lost two major capabilities there that basically established you as the superpower. And so I was sitting there and I was like, so what's next? Like China or North Korea could be like, hey, let's start spinning some shit up, And it's like the U.S. doesn't have the leverage or or the global standing or in military or economically that it had, literally a month ago. Like now you've exposed yourself to like what you can and can't do. So I'm curious what you think about this, Austin, and then we'll go to you, Josh.
Well, I mean, like one thing to add, like a military capability we lost. So apparently, we only had around 20 of those. I think the official designation for them is MOPs, but I think they're colloquially called bunker busters.
Yep.
So we had around 20 is the estimate most people give because we quit making them about a decade ago, and the estimate a decade ago was 20, and we're supposedly working on a replacement for them. But anyway, so we dropped 14. So I mean, like we only have 6 now. So even if we wanted like to retry this operation or wanted to try it on another country, it's like, do we really have enough munitions right now to do that? So I mean that's kind of a direct capability thing. And then like earlier I kind of mentioned like we now have like visually verified. Like now we kind of have a floor on like how many like interceptors we use. So the THAAD system, which is the U.S. Army's anti-ballistic missile system, they think like based like at a minimum based off of, like videos because they're able to like track like the plume and like all there's different characteristics for each missile. They think they fired off like I think it was 39 of those, and there's like 48 in a single battery. So I mean that's 500 million in gear right there, and to put that into context, like we only produce I think it's like I want to say like 70 or so in a year. So it's like we
30 or 60.
yeah 30 or 60. I think 70 was like 7 a month actually is where I'm getting that. So it's like we basically just fired off an entire year's worth of like munitions in one go. So I mean, there's
Hopefully we
that.
don't need it. Hopefully we don't need them like within the next year.
Yeah, and then that's the funny thing too, because I mean, I'm pretty sure both of you know the Davidson window where they're trying to get ready for potential China war by like 2027. So it's like we just used a year's worth of ammunition like a year before that window is supposed to hit. But like like the Chinese, I think the Russians, they've all been kind of seizing on that. Like, look, the Iranians were negotiating with them, and then Israel attacked them, and then they attacked Iran. And it's like, for one, and then two, I genuinely feel like he did it just for like to kind of clap on to like the initial like reaction to the Israeli operation because it looked really successful. It's like so Trump was coming out claiming he knew all about it, and it was kind of like a this and that, and it's like, dude, you basically just blew your credibility because now it's like, why would anybody negotiate with you? And then right before, if you guys remember, right before they did the actual bombing operation, he claimed he was going to give them 2 more weeks to negotiate, and then they did it. So it's like the reason you don't do that in like international diplomacy is because once you lose all credibility and like people don't take you at your word, I mean, people stop making deals with you. So it's like it's kind of like you said, like we're really blowing through a lot of stuff we cannot afford to do right now. And then what was the other one that happened that was really interesting? So I think it was Japan and South Korea, which is really, really interesting. They both declined to attend the NATO summit that just happened. And the reason they gave for that was because, the U.S. operations in the Middle East. So it's like, that's where, we talk a lot about China getting oil from that region. So do Japan and South Korea. So it's kind of like, hey, we're kind of threatening their supply. And then two, it like, Japan's trying to negotiate that trade deal with us right now. So now it's like you blew your credibility on that. Why would Japan want to sign a deal with you if they can't trust you to honor it?
Yeah.
So it's
or
like,
if you're going to go and hit them, the other way, they put up the tariffs and try to work with you, and now you're compromising their oil imports.
Yeah. So it's like you're already starting to like see almost immediate ramifications from this. And then two, like probably the biggest takeaway, and I've already seen a lot of people start saying this, it's like, if you're a nation that like potentially can be on the U.S. bad side, it's like at this point, like there's really no option but to go for nuclear weapons because it's like,
absolutely,
Gaddafi gave up his, Gaddafi got overthrown. Iran never formally went for it, and then they got attacked even though they were negotiating on it, and then
North Korea is the only successful one.
Yeah, and it's because they had nukes. So it's like I've seen that direct point made where a lot of people are now like, Kim Jong Un had the right idea. Just saying. So now, like, could that mean Venezuela goes for nukes? Could that mean, we got another like leftist regime in Nicaragua? Could they go for it? I mean, there's any number of ways this could rapidly escalate. Is the way I see it.
Yeah. All right, Josh. Let's bring you in. What do you think about kind of the U.S.'s credibility and capability? What have we? Where do we stand on that now?
Like just with the situation over there, or like
just because of this Iran issue, where do we stand with our capability? Are we better off or worse?
better off right now. Because like I said, when like until like someone like really stands up, like Turkey was kind of trying to like pull the Middle East together, like until someone really like stands up and like actually tries to like fight back against this, for me, I think it still wins for us. Um, so that's kind of where I'm at. I think the credibility is just we are the go-to problem solvers. Again, not a fan of it, but like that's just kind of, I will say, I do think overall until somebody really stands up against it, we're in good standing.
Yeah. So, but do you think like when someone does stand up, do you think it's going to be it's not just them, say, Iran again standing up? Do you think it's going to be basically Iran with all of our adversaries against us?
Yeah,
It's kind of like, it's like whatever that next time that they actually stand up, it's not like they're not just standing up by themselves. They're standing up with Russia, China, Venezuela, etc.
don't think Russia and China will touch it. I think it'll be more like Middle East that doesn't like Israel versus us, if anybody stands.
Okay. Um. So one kind of I thought I had a hot take here. It was kind of like with um with this whole nuclear thing. I my hot take was like, if I really wanted to get crazy, I would have been like, look, if you really don't want war, everybody's got to have nukes. Kind of like with what Austin's saying. It's like that's like if you're an adversary and whatnot, like you got to have a nuclear weapon. And my kind of take is I was thinking about this earlier. I was like, yeah, like why doesn't like I mean at this point if I was Spain or Germany or whoever, I'd be like, yeah, like let's just start spinning up nuclear capability. And if I'm Saudi, I'm gonna just start spinning that up and everything like that. And I was thinking about it and I was like, would that honestly I was like that might actually make peace more inevitable. Um, because it's like no one's. It's kind of like goes into mad where it's like no one wants to do it. Everyone's got the nukes, but no one wants to deploy them. Um, but then I was thinking, I was like, yeah, but then it's like, okay, if Iran gets it or Pakistan, like some shit could happen, and then the next day you've got some terrorist organization that's in charge of the country, and then it's like, well, now what do you do? And I think that's more the concern, but it almost made me kind of think like, are we essentially moving into a world where everybody, basically all G20 countries, essentially are going to have some sort of nuclear program to defend themselves? Um, so I don't know. What do you think, Austin? And then I kind of want to go turn this to kind of domestic politics and potentially any implications.
Yeah, I think nuclear proliferation like this was already kind of like a bubbling concern, just because like the world is becoming more multipolar, which kind of makes it more like, okay, like you need to have a deterrent, and it's cheaper to have a nuclear force than it is to have a significant conventional capacity. So there's that. But yeah, I definitely think like there's one big thing a lot of people have been saying last few days, especially about Iran. It's like if they didn't have a reason before, they definitely have one now to like sprint for
Yeah.
the bomb. And then Pakistan already has a bomb, So and then there's been talk for a while, like there supposedly there is a rumor that the Saudis like funded a lot of the Pakistani program, and then like the deal they made behind, the secret deal they made was like if Saudi Arabia ever needed a nuke, it would just
Oh,
Pakistan
oh
would
yeah, yeah,
supply.
yeah. They just buy it from Pakistan.
Yeah, so that's been the rumor for a while there, and then there's reports that other countries might start looking at stuff. I mean, one country that I'm really surprised, is Egypt, and I do agree with like Josh that like Turkey's like a somebody to watch. Um, I mentioned Venezuela earlier. I mean, there's definitely a lot of contenders that could go for it, and I could definitely see like if the U.S. security architecture really collapses in like Asia, I could definitely see Japan going for it just as like a deterrent terror. Japan lives in kind of like a dangerous area, so I could kind of see Japan eventually going for it.
Yep.
So I mean,
Which
there's
would
a
be
lot.
hard for them to do, right? Like
Oh
they
yeah,
could do it tomorrow.
the rumor is they have like a capacity within less than 4 weeks. Is the rumor I've heard. Like they've quietly been like, yeah, if you ever really kind of push us too hard, we can get this done in 4 weeks or less. So
Well, and it made me think a lot about you know kind of the ages, right? So it was like I was thinking about like World War One, and to an extent World War Two before atomic bombs kind of came in. Everyone was kind of fighting conventional warfare, and the nuclear bomb kind of changed that. And honestly, kind of made me think like if I was the United States, I'd be sitting there thinking like, okay, like if you really want to dominate, really the next jump is going to be, okay, how can I shoot down everyone's nuclear missiles, even if they launch them from a submarine? Like, how can I almost kind of obsolete all that technology, you know? And that's honestly kind of where I was thinking. I was like, that's essentially going to decide who's going to be the next superpower and who's going to be the next hegemon is, who's got the ability to shoot all this shit down and make nuclear weapons obsolete. You know, because if everybody's going to get them, essentially the next thing is okay. Well, whoever has the best that no one else has, that's going to be the person who's going to be kind of the go-to. And that kind of goes into the whole Star Wars thing that Reagan was trying to do. And it almost makes me think, okay, is that going to be the next push that we start to see? So I don't know. That's like I said. I'm curious to kind of see how that's going to kind of play out. I know there's a lot more technical challenges and stuff like that, but I wouldn't be surprised if Trump and Elon kind of try to move in that direction. I mean, they already kind of are with dominating space. So I wouldn't be surprised if they try doing something like that. But that'd be for me. I'd be like, I was telling the president, like, look, man, if everybody's gonna be getting these nukes, you got to find a way to shoot this shit down before it even, like, right after it takes off with like 100% accuracy, and you got to kind of figure that out. Um, so that's kind of where I think that would go. So I kind of want to shift lastly to kind of the domestic side of this. So in let's see, probably the first Democratic primary is probably going to come up in, uh, you know, Democratic and Republican primaries are probably going to wrap up in say March. So maybe what is that 9 months from now? Um, is this still going to be talked about? Are people going to be running on this? What do you think, Austin?
Really depends. I mean, if the ceasefire holds, then I feel like it might fade in the background. But if it's kind of still up in the air whether this will hold. I mean, he's directly kind of acknowledged that today. He was kind of like, I don't, if I really don't know if it, they could be prevented from getting back into it together. And it's like I said earlier, it's like kind of the situation we're in is where they stalemated each other. It's like what I mean, like obviously Israel did more tactical damage, but I mean the Iranians remain like strategically capable. CENTCOM's new commander testified before Congress today and said they still, Iran still retains like significant capacities. So I mean, it's like this really didn't end anything. It's still kind of going to be on the back burner. So it kind of depends if it like restarts back up.
So, what if it does?
It really depends on like how serious it gets. I mean, the nightmare scenario for the U.S. going into this, I think we discussed it a little bit in the group chat, was if Iran shuts down the Straits of Hormuz, and then because I think it was Deutsche Bank and J.P. Morgan both released estimates. It was like, yeah, that would shoot oil to like 130 a barrel, which would pretty much instantly like send everybody into recession. So I mean, there's that. So I mean, if that happened, then yeah, that'd definitely be a huge issue. If it's contained to just like a missile war between them, I mean, yeah, I still think it would be an issue, especially in places where like, there's a lot of like, like Muslim voters or Jewish voters. But now it really depends on like kind of to the level of U.S. involvement. Because I mean, I've not seen polling directly on the question of if we should be involved at all. I do know I think it was Reuters came out with a poll the other day that was like 78% of Americans are opposed to further strikes, and even like 53% of Republicans were opposed to further strikes. So it's kind of like it's really a question of how involved the U.S. is, and then like like I said earlier, the thing we kept watching was like, okay, is Iran's missile capacity going to run out before Israel's air defenses run out? And there's a lot to suggest now that their air defenses came within a hair of being overwhelmed, and like I said earlier, like we basically shot off like an entire year's worth of THAAD missiles. So it's like if this starts back up and we're still supporting them, there's a very high chance that like we could completely deplete our arsenals and then they would run out. And then if it's a situation where like Iran's just able to pummel them with like near immunity, then that's something. Then too, if Israel's able to like overpower them and does effectively collapse the government, I mean that's something else, because I mean like we've seen what happens when like with like Syria and Iraq and Libya, what happens when these governments topple. I mean, it's not good for anybody. So it really just depends on, I would say, primarily what is the level of U.S. involvement. Two, what is the strategic lay of the land? If it's just like a slugfest like this was, it just depends. And then too, you got to think about like the longer strategic time frame, because it's like it may not matter in 2026, but if, we're talking in 2032 and China took Taiwan because we didn't have enough air defense, that's that's an entirely different matter. So I mean, there's some stuff that you can kind of say right now, and then there's other stuff you got to be like, it's going to take time to see.
All right, Josh, what do you think? Do you think we're going to be talking about this next March?
No. Um, Honestly, I really agree with what Austin said a lot, so I don't really have too much else to go into. Because Austin's right at the end of the day, there. At least what I think. But no, I mean, I don't think this will be something we talk about. I mean, if we talk about it, it'll be like, do y'all remember when we had this conflict that happened, whatever. Um, so I think it'll be solved. I don't see us going into a war because of it. I think it'll be handled pretty well. Um, I think really right now it's just a game of waiting and seeing kind of how the Middle East as a whole is going to react to all this. Because right now it's just feels like it's just Iran.
Yeah.
Like, so maybe in a few weeks we'll see some of the Middle East either fully stay out of it or try to get into it. But that's kind of where I'm at. Is just I think we're still kind of in a wait and see moment before I can fully say what's going to happen. But I don't think we'll be talking about it next March. So.
Do you think if this is something that is talked about, do you think Democrats or do you think Republicans are going to talk more about it?
I think Democrats will probably try to talk a little bit more about it because they can use it. And not an offensive thing. I don't mean this in any way to the Democrats. Like I respect anybody. I mean, I've worked in Republican politics. I get it. Like you look for rhetoric that you can use. So I would say, and it's not a dumb thing for them. But if it's not handled well, I would really, if I was a Democrat, I would be all over it. I'd be like, look how badly this was handled. Like we're not in a place to do this. So I think, hindsight being 2020, I think the Democrats will use it as rhetoric of why Republicans are failing and why we shouldn't be in charge. Um, I think Republicans will try to clinch onto any wins we can get in it, but I don't see any full wins yet coming.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think I kind of agree with you guys. I don't think I'm gonna see anything coming down. I mean, obviously, like you guys mentioned, unless this starts kind of blowing up, I don't really kind of see this becoming something that people are going to talk about. And honestly, like the way that I look at it is, I look at kind of the resolutions that have kind of been proposed, right? Like, AOC tried impeaching Trump, or not AOC, I think it was uh, Representative Green was trying to impeach Trump, over stuff like this. And it's like, I think it was like 100 and something. Like it was almost like half the whole Democratic caucus, like basically went with Republicans and like voted it down. And it's one of those where it's kind of like I just don't see the appetite there. And I I I can see this as like if this keeps like for example, if this keeps escalating, I could see those progressives kind of being like, hey, like this, we were right from the very beginning. We should have listened to us. We should have done this. This was a bad thing. We should have impeached him or, with Ro Khanna doing war powers, like we should have done that. And I could see as like that kind of causing some friction, at least within the Democratic side, and kind of shifting more people towards a progressive end or, away from Republicans. But I don't really see how you can keep this sustained, right? Like, you got to be able to talk about this and keep talking about it. And in 3 months, I don't think anybody's going to give a shit as long as everything kind of stays cool. So that's kind of what I think. I think we're all kind of in agreement. We just kind of need to wait and see. But it's kind of sad because it's like, if this was this time next year, this is the general election, we would be talking about it because it's so close to things happening and you know, November's what, 4 months away, but it's kind of like now it's like, I just don't see anything really gonna come out of this. So I think I agree with you guys. But obviously we'll see if anything happens. So I want to kind of end it there, but Austin, Josh, any kind of final thoughts on what we need to be thinking about this, what what we should be looking at, and anything coming out?
Josh, you want to go first?
Yeah, I can. You talking about now? Is this open to anything like final
Yeah,
thoughts?
just anything with Iran and Israel coming out. Like, do we just anything we need to keep our eye on? Anything kind of involved or tangentially related to this that we should be concerned about?
Yes. So, I'm just gonna go ahead and put this out there. I do think, as far as stuff that we should be watching for and thinking about, I kind of want all of us really to pay attention about pay attention to any messaging coming from anywhere in the Middle East. Mainly Turkey right now has been the people that I'm like the most keep my eye on because I think if they get involved, it does get a little bit more interesting. I've been saying that for a few days now. I'm just like kind of waiting on them. But the main thing is just watching communications between Israel, us, Iran, and Turkey right now.
Okay. What about you, Austin?
I definitely think the biggest takeaway from this is there was a lot of like division within like the right on this. Like, Tucker Carlson, and then you had Thomas Massey and stuff were kind of very much an anti-intervention streak, and they also probably one of the biggest like things that's come out of this is like there's a very clear question now, like, okay, the Israel lobby, like what are we going to do about that? And like that is a very contentious issue now. That's a lobby issue, and you could kind of see some interesting stuff come out of that. I think there's we saw that last night with like what is his name, like Zohar Mamdani or whatever, when
The New York City mayor. Yep.
Yeah, and so like the whole reason there's a freak out about that is like he's pro BDS. So I mean, it's like you could see like some interesting left-right alliances come out of this because like there clearly does seem to be like a lot of questions about the Israel lobby, like what influence it plays, and then that's seems to be like kind of a friction point on both sides of the aisle now. So that'll probably be the most lasting political impact of this. I'm definitely seeing a lot more people like even hearing like heart of the Bible Belt, like very evangelical. It's like I've had a lot of people be like, yeah, I don't really know why we're getting involved in this. This is not really our thing. Israel needs to handle this by themselves. Like we don't need to be involved in this. So I mean, like that is something to kind of keep an eye on because that could potentially be a major political impact going forward.
Yeah. I think one thing that I'm gonna kind of keep an eye on is I'm still just kind of curious about the Israeli government at this point. Like how are they still standing? I mean, like it's one thing to really kind of throw some shit at, Gaza or Hezbollah and do these targeted strikes and come out on top. But it's like Iran, kind of like what you were saying, Austin, it's like Iran was getting through your defense systems, and like, Iran was hitting shit on the ground and doing major damage. And I almost kind of want it to be like where they're like, hey, like, why are we still have this government in power? Like maybe we should kind of go back to what, people were saying this for a long time is once the war in Gaza ends, then they're gonna like go back and really hit on Netanyahu.
Well,
And
did you
honestly, it kind of makes me think like I almost wonder if that's gonna kind of raise that floor a little bit.
did
To
you
attention.
did you see what happened today with that? Where like Trump came out and was like trying to he made like a big lengthy statement today about like how it was like a witch hunt to go after Netanyahu and stuff, and the reason he did it was because I think it was like the Israeli Supreme Court issued like a notice for Netanyahu to like return for like his case on Monday. So that's already started to back up. So
Yeah.
it's like the smoke is very cleared, and they're already like starting to see the infighting happen again. And then
Well,
too,
and that's
it's like
and I'm like, hey, when people are dead, because I think there was, what was it like? There's a few hundred Israelis dead, I think. And it's like obviously immense damage, especially in Tel Aviv and all this other kind of stuff. It's like you really don't want to be like if I was Netanyahu, it's like you're not really standing on high ground, being like, hey, look, I fucking protected us. Like you can sit here and say what you want, but in the court of public opinion, I'm solid, I'm good, whatever it is. You know, I don't know if you can really do that when you yourself took strikes. Like against Gaza, not really, there wasn't really much coming this way. But it's like with Iran, like, yeah, there's some shit hit the floor, literally hit the floor. So I want to keep an eye on that. Like, and I think if a regime toppled, or not regime, but if the government changed over in Israel, I almost wonder if this would kind of go back to, okay, maybe someone's gonna try to do a sprint for peace in the Middle East, and I think that's when you could maybe see some Abraham Accords Part Two and stuff with Gaza and all this other kind of stuff. I think that could be interesting, but like I don't think it's gonna be super likely. But I think there's gonna be some interesting stuff if that happens, or if Netanyahu gets under fire. But I think he's just gonna kind of hermit at this point and just kind of try to consolidate power on that end. So, any last things, Austin, you want to say on that?
not at the moment. No.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll go ahead and end it there. Appreciate everyone hopping on, and we'll see what happens.